What's up everybody, Super Dorks fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2013 Hyundai Genesis Coupe GT 3.8. Huge thanks to Matt for hooking me up with this very sweet Genesis to review for you guys today. So, I already did the 2.0T Genesis and many of you asked for the 3.8. So, this 3.8 though isn't stock. It's not far from stock, but it does have some very great upgrades to it. Of course, first thing, it's in this beautiful Catalina copper color, which is one of about 100 or so in the US and Canada, so a very rare color, and it just looks gorgeous, especially in the sunlight here. And of course, you can see the other visual modifications. He's got these niche wheels that are very attractive looking, 20-inch wheels on it. And as far as the performance stuff, he's added a lot of the R-spec goodies, such as the limited slip differential and the Brembo brakes, has stainless steel lines, and it's got all kinds of enhancements under the hood as well. It even has an intake, it has the exhaust with a secondary cat delete, and all kinds of goodies. The coilovers this car has, because it's of course sitting lower, are ISC coilovers, and so we have those dialed in for the back roads here, so this thing should be a handling beast. As far as the Genesis look, I mean, it's a beautiful car. I talked about it in the turbo review as well, but very beautiful lines, very elegant. A lot of people confuse it for higher end cars, so it's really nice, with the styling, and I think it's a beautiful car. Right, so for the interior of the Genesis Coupe here, well, this one's a lot nicer than the turbo that I did because it is the GT trim, so that adds the niceties as these leather seats, which is the first thing sitting down in this car you notice, is the seats. Same basic shape as all the other Genesis Coupes, but this one, is nicely leather trimmed here, and they're also heated, which is nice. And, they're a little on the looser side. I wish they were a little bit tighter, of course, but they're not bad seats, actually, and they're comfortable, and the way you sit in this car, too, is very unique. And I mentioned this in the turbo review as well, but it's a very sporty seating position. You kind of sit back a little bit and low in the car, and it just gives you a very sporty feel. Next, though, is the steering wheel in this car, which is nice. It has a good 9-3 grip, the little 10-2 notches here. You have some paddle shifters that are plastic, feel a little cheap, but it's nice to have paddle shifters at all, so that's good to have. And the wheel is nice. You have the good array of buttons on here, and it's nothing amazing. It's not one of the best wheels out there, but it gets the job done, and it's really good feeling in your hands. Next is the gauges, which is like all the other Genesis Coupes, and they're very attractive. I love how there's the middle gauges within each larger gauge, and it's a cool design. I really like them. They're easy, straightforward to read, and I really like them a lot. Next is the center of the dashboard here, which again, being the GT, you have a nice touchscreen navigation system here, and that's also your radio controls. Big improvement over the basic little readout that you had that was a basic black and blue color screen. This is obviously bringing it into the 21st century, which is nice, and it's a very attractive center stack though still. I love these 3 gauges here you have in the middle. In this car, there's no boost gauge, of course. It's not turbocharged, so you have a torque gauge instead in the middle there, which is a cool feature to have. And again, these gauges are too low to really be super useful in my opinion, because you're looking up and straight ahead, and they're kind of way down here, but it's nice to have them nonetheless. It's a cool little feature. As far as all the other buttons and knobs go, it's still Hyundai stuff. I mean, not that I'm, knocking on Hyundai really, but they've improved a lot in the past few years here, but it still leaves a little bit to be desired compared to some of the competition. Honda Civic SIs, I would say, have better feeling interior plastics and things, but it's not bad. As far as storage space goes in the Genesis Coupe, it's pretty good. So, you have little pockets here in the doors that are just large enough to fit a map or two. That's about it. You have 2 cup holders here in the middle. One smaller than the other, which is a little bit different, but it's not so small that it's unusable. You still have 2 good usable cup holders there. In the center here, right in front of the shifter, you have your auxiliary and iPod and USB jacks, as well as a power outlet, which is nice to have there, and it's hidden away with that little door. And then you have the center console here that's nicely padded, and it's not super deep, but you can fit some things in there. And you also have another power outlet in there, which is nice to have, and so a nice little bit of storage there. As far as backseat space goes in the Genesis, you have a pretty tight back seat. You have the sloping roof lines, so you don't have an abundance of headroom either, but it is enough to, fit people back there in a pinch. Of course, you don't want to use them on a regular basis or all the time, but it's not bad for, when you absolutely need to. As far as trunk space goes in the Genesis, it's enough, for 2 people, which is about all you need. You can fit 2 full-size suitcases in there, a few duffel bags, things like that. So enough, for 2 people, but, not overly huge either. All right, so start off and go for a drive. You know, Hyundai's all have these nice key fobs, and the Genesis GT here, it's keyless and everything, so you just leave that in your pocket, hit the end to start button, it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the 2013 Hyundai Genesis 3.8 GT Coupe. So first disclaimer I have to say is this car is on those coilovers, and this is set up as an autocross car. So this is obviously not going to handle like a stock Genesis would, and the rear does rub a little bit because of the wheels and the coilovers, of course. So you know, you might hear that from time to time in the video as well, but it doesn't affect performance, and the coilovers do make it handle a whole lot better. So I'm on this bumpy park road first thing, and this one isn't quite as bumpy as the one I'm normally on, but it still does absorb bumps nicely. It's not like it's a super harsh race car ride. You know, it's just a little bit firmer than stock. But you know, I've actually noticed in a lot of the coilovers that I've driven in other cars that coilovers sometimes even make it more comfortable. And this one being dialed in the way it is, it's a very compliant ride, aside from really harsh bumps and things you have to, you know, look out for with potholes and whatnot. But it handles really well. And you know, typical Genesis form, very good visibility, large side windows, so that you really don't have to worry about the B-pillar. Front visibility is very good. The hood drops down nicely, so you really don't have to worry about the visibility in this car. You see out of it very well. You know, otherwise, it's a very nice thing to drive down the road. You know, first things you notice, the steering is a nice weight. The throttle response is all very good, very predictable, like how you would expect it to be. This automatic transmission is the same 8-speed automatic that you get for the most part in the Genesis Turbo that I reviewed. So we're really comparing apples to apples as far as the way the cars are set up. You know, so this car also has a tune as well. So it's a tuned automatic Genesis Coupe. Of course, this one just has the V6 engine instead of the Turbo 4. And this 8-speed automatic, it's very smooth. You know, it gets great fuel economy on the highway. And I know that some people have said that the Genesis Coupe's manual transmission can have some issues. So the automatic's definitely a safe bet for those that are worried about transmission issues, because these seem to hold up a whole lot better than the manuals do. Also, this car is running a BTR CAN tune, so we have that, plus the intake and exhaust, the limited slip diff, and a few other things, you know, a different throttle body and whatnot. So there's some slight performance stuff. This thing should be a little over 400 horsepower at the crank, and should be pretty powerful. So I got the transmission over into the manual sport mode here. I'll just leave it in sport though. I won't shift it manually at first here. And all right, so let's turn on to this straight road here. Let's see how it does. Here we go. So like I said, we're dealing with right around 400 horsepower at the crank, I would say, and it pulls hard. Now this thing, you would think that would have wheel spin, but because of the larger tires and larger wheels, these tires are actually 275s in the rear, 255s in the front, so you don't get any wheel spin. It just grips and goes, and it feels pretty good. I gotta say, of course, you don't have the drama of the turbo kicking in. It's very linear, very predictable in the way that it gives you your power, but it's really a fun little car to drive. So you know, these things will do 0 to 60 in around 4.8 seconds or so from the factory. This might even be a little bit quicker than that, of course, because of the bolt-ons and the tune. So quite a big improvement, and it's definitely a fun little car to drive around. You have that awesome exhaust too. Some people actually say it sounds like a GTR, and I think I agree. It has a very GTR-esque sound, and I love the sound of V6 engines with exhaust. They have that really unique burble to them, and kind of a lopey kind of sound. It sounds so good. One thing you notice is, of course, because this car has the Brembo brakes added on from the R-Spec, it's very nice feeling brakes. They engage very early on, and they stop really well, and you know, it definitely gives you a lot of confidence, and feels much better than the stock Turbo Genesis brakes. I can definitely say that for sure. Just cruising along though in normal Sunday traffic here. It is a very nice car just to cruise around in, and you sit so nice and low, and I mean that partially is due to the coilovers, but even in regular Genesis, all the stock ones even have a low sitting position, and it's a really just a cool way to drive around, and I love the driving position in these. So let's see about this acceleration again, shall we? It rips! And with these coilovers, I mean, there's no squirm, it just holds on. This thing is a monster. I love it. to get onto the back road where I tested the other Genesis and really compare apples to apples there and see just how much different this one handles than the turbo. Alright, so here's the same corners I took the Genesis Turbo Coupe on, and let's see with these coilovers just how much better this feels. Very, very tight corners here. Wow. Scraping, but it still grips so well, and that's just the fender liner, so it's not decreasing performance at all, but man, this thing, it just grips and sticks. These tires have really good grip, and those brakes really, really bite. So much better balance. The turbo, you just had to continually babysit it because that back end just constantly wants to step out. This one, it just grips and goes, and it's a whole lot easier to drive, I'll say that, and you don't have to second guess yourself. The turbo, I was constantly like, oh man, okay, like it was fun because you have to constantly manage the oversteer, whereas this, with these meteor tires, it's just no problem whatsoever. And it's, you got that great Ark exhaust, sounds so good as well, but these shifts with this automatic, it's really good, especially for back roads attacking like this. It's, oh man, it's fun. Yeah, it definitely handles better, much better. Of course, that's probably a lot of that has to do with the coilovers, but I must say, this engine, being a V6, is a lot heavier than the Turbo 4, yet this didn't feel front heavy to me. It didn't feel like a boat anchor or anything. It really still feels just as lightweight and just as nimble and scrape, but it's just, it's a delight. It's really just a delight. Wow. This is how you set up coilovers. The owner of this car did a very good job fine-tuning this. Like I said, he does autocross it a lot, so he really, you know, went to great lengths to make this ride well, because some coilovers do ride terribly, but even not attacking back roads, just cruising along, this is basically stock comfort levels, aside from the occasional hard bump from, you know, really tough pothole or something, which is going to be rough in any car. These actually are very smooth, and it's very, very impressive. Very impressive car. Oh man, I'm going to turn around and do that again. Another cool thing about the Genesis that I briefly mentioned at the very beginning is that no one really knows what this is still, and I mentioned that with the turbo review as well, but especially this one in this orange color, it definitely stands out, you know, because everyone sees an orange car and they do a double take, and so it's kind of funny. I think there was actually even one person that like was snapping their neck as we were driving because it was like they were wondering what it was, and it definitely does look a lot like an exotic, and a lot of people ask the owner of this car, is this a Bentley, you know, is this a Porsche, something like that. So it definitely has an exotic feel to it. I mean, so for those that do like making an impression whenever they're driving around and like to be seen in something stylish, this definitely fits the bill. So in conclusion, you know, I've been driving this car around for a while here, and it's really a nice car. It's so fun, and it's a very clear distinction. If you want to manage oversteer and, you know, having a BRZ sense of back end constantly wanting to kick out, the turbo is probably the one to get, because that boost comes on and it's very peaky in that car, and it loves to kick that back end out and break the tires loose. This of course has some modifications, so maybe a stock 3.8 would have a somewhat similar feel, but this just feels so much more planted, of course, with these coilovers and the larger tires. This thing just feels like a big go-kart, and it feels great. You know, I mean, it's still, you have some weight, you know, it doesn't feel as light on its feet as like a new Corvette or something like that, but it sticks. That's the thing, is it sticks so well, and it gives you so much confidence. You don't second guess yourself once, and it's darn near impossible to even get this thing to kick the back end out. It's really impressive, and so it just depends on what you want, you know. I mean, I think coilovers on both would probably have a similar effect, but that turbo motor definitely lends itself to the oversteer more than this does. So it's really just different flavors. Do you want vanilla or chocolate? And so overall though, very, very fun car, and huge thanks to Matt once again for allowing me to review it here. It's just a very cool car, and really glad I got to do both the 3.8 and the 2.0 turbo. So let me know what you think of the two different Genesis, and which one you would rather have, the turbo or this mighty V6. And so yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.